I want to come out in full support of this nascent movement called, I don't know what we should call it, Occupy Wall Street. Um, I think it's a good start. I think it should go nationwide in every city, um, because the people up top, that 1%, not us 99%, and some of us are actually business owners, okay, small business owners. I'm not, but I know people who are small business owners, and they're struggling, and they're not they're not exactly for Wall Street either, okay? So let's get that one straight. Uh, I think it's time to point fingers at the structure of these conglomerates who are basically overtaking the globe. Okay, so this is not just this is not just about America. It's on a global scale, because these multinational companies have absolutely no alliance to any kind of nation or constitution or anything like that whatsoever. And this is why some of the Ron Paul supporters get fooled, because they think that Ron Paul is supporting the U.S. Constitution, which he actually is. But what Ron Paul supporters don't realize is that Ron Paul he is for the free globalist market. Okay, that's the bottom line, and that is precisely the problem. This is the underlying problem here. None of these wars, occupations, and imperialism would happen without that kind of impetus of this so-called free market fantasy. There are no free markets, and there never will be free markets, because each local economy or nation economy is different than your own. So in order to have fair exchange values between those parties, you would have to have not only the fair exchange of capital and money, but you would also have to have a fair exchange between labor forces on a global scale. Now, I've heard, plenty of criticism in terms of, people accuse me of being, I guess I'm a commie now, a communist or something, because I believe in fair trade, okay? I don't believe in free trade. I believe in fair trade for everyone. And that has to be gauged locally as well as between several nation states and so on. And there's absolutely no way that American workers, the American middle class, can ever compete with the slave wages in countries in South Asia or elsewhere. What are we supposed to do to be competitive? I've heard this comment over and over again on my videos. It's like, well, you know what? If you don't, if you tax those corporations too much, then they're just going to move more and more jobs overseas. Well, yeah, that's exactly my point. So you should give incentives to those corporations to not move any more jobs overseas. And that is not to lower their taxes. It is to penalize them big time if they do so. In other words, no more tax breaks, period, for them. if people in developed nations think that they're on the right track to foster these ridiculous free trade agreements, globalization, so to speak, when capital is free to move around, at will, because they can do that. The big capital can do that. But when labor is not free to move across the borders, okay, this is where some of the immigration problems come in as well, then what are you people really talking about? If capital is free to move, then labor should be able to move and be just as free as capital. So if people start complaining about immigration problems in this country, you need to think about deeper issues, because the only reason we have illegal immigration problems in this country is because of so-called free trade agreements that we have made with oppressive governments all over the fucking place. People can't make a living in those countries, and so naturally, as a human being, they want to better their position and move, one or two steps up, because some other exploiter is then going to raise the bar. In actuality, all of this is a lie, because it's actually lowering the bar for everyone on a global scale. Basically, what the libertarians and Republicans and other free trade assholes out there are telling us, and that includes Obama, by the way, are telling us that if we can just compete with labor in the third world, we should all be basically be competitive with third world wages, which means working 12 hours a day, 7 days a week for 40 cents an hour. And you know what? That might actually happen if we do not speak up and speak out against this and revolt against this kind of free trade bullshit. It isn't about free trade. It's about fair trade between nations or groups of people. It isn't about, the longevity of the human species doesn't depend on quarterly corporate profits, and their major shareholders. The major shareholders, by the way, are not you. It's not you anymore. They tried to sell you that bullshit when they got you all caught up in your 401k plans and invest in Wall Street, and then they screwed you over. And now these same people are telling you, oh no, let's just do some more of that. Let's just get rid of all social safety nets, for one thing, because if you keep your own money, you can invest it in the stock market. That's just a fucking brilliant idea. Brilliant. Especially, you're going to find out just how brilliant that is once the stock market actually crashes 6 months before you get ready to retire. And then you're going to know what that means. People on here accuse me of being a communist, a socialist, whatever. I'm as much as a communist or socialist as Gerald Celente. Some of us can see the shit coming. And we can see it coming, that the elites, the really, really, really upper 5%, and yeah, of course, Gerald Celente, is probably a millionaire, but he's nowhere near that upper 1%. And he sees the handwriting on the wall, as everyone else does who has paid any fucking attention in the last 30 years. And then, of course, you hear these conflicting things on the news, and I mean, I hardly ever watch the news anymore because it's just idiotic. This constant drumbeat of pitting people against each other. We should be able to move beyond this, take the ideas from certain people, keep what's good, and some of Ron Paul's ideas in terms of not doing any more foreign wars, foreign interventions, and shutting down the military-industrial complex. We should take those ideas, go with them, but not to the point of 100% agreement on that one person's opinions about everything else. It means we take the best ideas from various sources and put them together, in a new framework. The old framework is crumbling. This laissez-faire capitalist bullshit is not working for anybody but for the upper 5% of the elites. I mean, Jesus Christ, read Forbes magazine. Even these people are getting scared now, right? They don't necessarily even represent the upper 5%. They represent those people who want to make it into that upper 5%. And it's laughable. It's laughable. All of us need to live within some measure of our own means. We don't need a goddamn new iPod every year. It's completely unproductive. That technology can last for a few years. You don't need to have all these sorts of technological inventions without inventing something more basic, such as sustainability for energy on this planet. We've got 7 billion people on this planet of ours, and everybody is going to be involved in resource wars in the very near future. I mean, it's already happening. It's basically always been so, but it's going to be ratcheted up 100-fold or 1,000-fold in the next coming decades. Because, our leaders, so-called leaders, what they look at is short-term profit, not longevity, not sustainability. It's all about short-term gain. And while I completely agree with cutting back on our consumption, which is for the most part, especially here in America, totally ridiculous, I do not agree with the notion that everybody should go down to the lowest common denominator in terms of wages, which are paid in Southeast Asia or Africa or elsewhere. Because that is not what we should be aspiring to do. In other words, we should lift people up, not push them down. We should raise people's living standards, the poorest of the poor. To the point where they can live reasonable lives without having to, scratch for food in the desert, get raped by some militia on the way to getting your food. And we don't need this conspicuous consumption of endless entertainment in this country. You know, I'm not saying we can't have jokes. We can't be amicable and funny with each other. We can. But as soon as you start hating another social group simply because you don't belong to it, you know, it's in the long run it's counterproductive. Our consumption, overconsumption in the West is destroying this fucking planet. And that's the reality of it. Okay, so we need to get over it, consume less, have more sustainable lifestyles. And we all can play a role in this. We can all cut down, turn off the lights, you know, turn down the thermostat, all that stuff. And most of all, you know, cancel our cable TV subscriptions and all the rest of this bullshit. Because it's only, it's mostly only propaganda. That's all it is. And not much else. Why not even scale down our consumption on the internet and get in touch with real people, you know, in our own communities and talk to people rather than getting all heated up about fake debates on TV. You know, I mean, that day will come sooner or later anyway. So you may as well be prepared for it and start talking to real people. Because you'll be surprised at how they will react. You won't find the kind of ad hominem attacks that are taking place, you know, on every blog on the internet or video, whatever, if you deal with real people, because they know what's at stake and they know that certain boundaries shouldn't be crossed. I know I haven't made a video in a long time, so I hope that I got something out there tonight that makes people think. And other than that, I guess that's all I'm trying to do. Good night.